Before we get very far into our next story, we do have a warning for you tonight. What you're about to see and hear may not be suitable for children. Tonight, take a walk in their world.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Transpicuous News. It is March 1st, 2017. Somehow, winter's over. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying. It's very, very strange. Going to delve into the news for the last couple of days, seeing as there's been so many distractions going on. Oh, like the Oscars. But we are going to talk about it in a second. And I'm not even going to take the piss out of NASA this week. I could have, but I decided not to. So let's jump in and take a look at where we're going to start. We're going to start off with, if we wanted proof that the U.S. is fully created and supported ISIS, this is it. The U.S. is sending their F-35s to the Middle East to fight ISIS in the not-too-distant future. Those would be the jets that don't fucking work, that don't have firing systems that properly work yet. Yeah. So that's how serious they are about combating ISIS. We're going to take the worst fucking jet in the history of the world and send it to the Middle East. Yeah, there you go. And further into the Middle East, the rousing game of musical chairs, the latest round has come to an end. So Syrian army has retaken Palmyra, the citadel, from ISIS. The music stops, and whoever's sitting in Palmyra apparently wins that round. But yeah, Syrian government apparently has now retaken Palmyra again. So that's all. I am going to get into that because I just don't even want to talk about the Middle East right now because it's fucking stupid. Are you really here, stupid? Prince Charles really thinks it's a good idea? Because you see, okay, in England, they're stupid, and they imported North American gray squirrels to England, and they took over. So now they have all these gray squirrels, and they need to, like, get rid of them. So some brilliant person came up with the idea, we're going to get Nutella, and we're going to mix in oral contraceptives into the Nutella so the squirrels can't get pregnant. Prince Charles thinks that's just a fine job. Excellent idea. I don't know what they're going to do, but all the squirrels with breast cancer and ovarian cancer that are going to happen in the next couple of years. But I guess, you know, they'll cross that bridge when they get to it. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about? Oh, and in abject, impossible to even remotely make up ridiculousness, people in France have put together a petition for Obama to be the president of France in 2017. I shit you not. It's legit. It actually happened. They were trying to get 1 million signatures to make Obama the president of France in 2017. Oh, of course, that little thing about him not actually being French, apparently, yeah. They didn't have to be American to be the American president. So I guess they figured, oh, we can do it in France too. Let's see, what else do we got to talk about today? Oh, okay, hold. Now, this is a little interesting because, again, I always love what the news doesn't report on. You know, like the fact that France prosecuted 65 bankers. Yes, they did. 65 bankers were arrested and prosecuted, including and headed up by the former IMF chief, who could get as many as 4.5 years in jail. for his contribution to like the bullshittery of the Spanish financial system and everything that's been going on over there, which is going on everywhere, but they kind of took it to a whole new level. Wait, former IMF chief, and he's going to jail? Kind of reminds me of like another IMF chief. Oh, was it, remember when Christina Lagarde was arrested? Well, no, wasn't arrested. She was sentenced. She was convicted, fully convicted over payouts and multi hundreds of millions of dollars of payouts and all the rest of it. Okay, first of all, she was convicted, never sentenced, not for a single day, and she didn't even show up in the courts because she was too busy over in Washington to be there for the court case. So it tells you how serious she was taking it. But very, very interesting. IMF doesn't really have a strong history in choosing people who perhaps are not quite as blameless as you would think. For a financial organization, they're kind of not batting very well at the moment when it comes to, you know, putting people in charge who are financially responsible people. I'm just saying. And one of the other big news stories, yeah, you know, this was last week or the week and a half ago, but, you know, Pablo Escobar's son has come out publicly and said that his dad worked for the CIA selling cocaine. Oh my God, I could never imagine the CIA involved in selling cocaine. I was shocked. No, I wasn't. But, I mean, just hysterical. And he's writing a book, a bestseller book, but all about how his dad sold cocaine for the CIA. All the little things that you miss when people are talking about all kinds of other fucking bullshit. You know, like Super Bowl and Oscar awards and stuff like that. Here's interesting. This is really, really interesting, and it should get a lot of people's attention. Anarchy in Austria. Hundreds of residents declare themselves state deniers. Now, first off, they say hundreds of residents, except at the very last paragraph, it talks about them having 22,000 supporters that they know of in the state of Austria. State deniers don't recognize the authority of the state organs, refuse to pay taxes or fines, and instead of contributing to public coffers, they claim compensation from civil servants and government institutions. The movement is particularly strong in Lower Austria, yada, yada, yada. It gathered pace in 2014 with the formation of groups such as the One People's Public Trust, and the Freeman and the Staatenbund and the Terranier. So, very, very interesting. Now, what makes this interesting is, of course, the article tries to portray it as they're terrible people. Although it never actually says that what they're doing is illegal. But the article does try to portray it like, you know, like I said, like instead of contributing to public coffers, they're sentencing and demanding compensation from civil servants and government institutions. What's interesting is this is on Sputnik News, mainstream Russian news. Now, if you go to Sputnik very often, you know that the vast majority of their news articles are 4, maybe 5 paragraphs long. This one's actually quite long. Goes into all kinds of different bits and pieces about who's doing what and how they've arrested a bunch of people, and there's a bunch of them who are all going up on charges. You can see this is an extensive, for Sputnik, this is an extensive article. The Federal Ministry of Interior estimates Austria has around 22,000 sympathizers of such movements. Interesting is the fact that A, the article was written and is being covered by Russian mainstream quite extensively and in a lot of detail, and very obviously trying to deter people, like, oh, yeah, no, they're going to go to jail. They're going to go to jail. Think they're making headway? Because I happen to know quite a few people who are still involved in serving courtesy notices and keeping up the fight against the corporate governments. The headway is being made. And when I see an article like this in the media, mainstream media, makes me go, oh, what's really going on in the background? Is someone perhaps getting a little bit nervous? Oh, gotta wonder though. Let's see, next is, oh, and this should actually be in the humor section of today's story. The U.S. possible withdrawal from the UN Human Rights Council is misguided and short-sighted. Okay, so Donald Trump has threatened to withdraw the U.S. from the UN Human Rights Council. Now, George Bush did this before, so this isn't like a new thing. The U.S. likes to play volleyball on this one quite often. It's the reasons given that are just ridiculous. Donald Trump's administration is apparently considering quitting the UN Human Rights Council due to its critical attitude towards Israel and its inefficiency. You mean inefficiency as in the fact that they do jack shit and they've never accomplished a single fucking thing? Yeah, so I will agree. Inefficiency, absolutely. Its critical attitude towards Israel. Oh, isn't that interesting? Now, what's really humorous is the fact of, it comes in here, withdrawal would do nothing to advance U.S. interests, but would merely dampen U.S. influence in international arena. And they talk about the result would be that serial rights abusers like China and Saudi Arabia would have an opportunity to prevent the UNHCR from exposing atrocities by the world's worst violators. Right, Saudi Arabia, you know, that guy, the country who they actually elected to the Human Rights Council with oversight on women's rights. Again, I can't make this shit up. These guys are in charge. Right, so on the one hand, I totally agree with Donald. The UN Human Rights Council is a crock of shit and useless as tits on a bowl. On the other hand, the excuse of they're too critical of Israel? Donald, darling. The color of your underwear is starting to show a little bit. Perhaps you might want to cover that up a little more. Now, finally, last article, and this was interesting. Okay, this caught my attention in a huge way. Now, this is the New Yorker. So again, this isn't some fluff website. This isn't just some, you know, fly-by-night, you know, little hick town newspaper. This is the New Yorker. Did the Oscars just prove that we're living in a computer simulation? So, in a nutshell, if you're not following this, and I don't blame you if you're not, I'm only following it because of this article. Oscar night on Sunday night, they get to the very last one, the last big award of the night, which is, of course, Best Picture. And Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty are so hardcore, old school Hollywood stars are presenting the award. There seems to be, like, you know, Warren Beatty's kind of looking at the card, kind of, and Faye Dunaway's like, just read it out, the answer. And then he hands it to her, and she reads out. The winner is, and I think the movie's called La La Land. I'd never heard of either movie ever, but whatever. La La Land. And the cheering, everything else, the whole cast and crew of La La Land get on stage. They make all their speeches. And then all of a sudden, some guy in a tuxedo runs out on stage and goes, I'm sorry. There's been a mistake. You didn't win the Oscar. It goes to some other movie. What's the movie called? Moonlight. There you go. You didn't win it. Moonlight won. And then they have to clear all those La La Land people off the stage while the Moonlight people come on the stage and do the whole thing over again. Now, I watched several versions of the footage. It was fucking bizarre. Bizarre. And the look on Warren Beatty's face was equally bizarre because after it all goes through, at the very end, he comes on stage and apologizes to everyone. I'm really, really sorry. And they try to pass off that he had the wrong card. That the card he had The card that he had was for Best Actress winner, who was some chick who was in the movie La La Land, which you might be able to swallow, except that it says on the front of the card, Best Actress, the actress's name, and then the movie La La Land. It doesn't say Best Movie. It doesn't say Best, and there's no way. And that card would have already been opened and read out earlier. It wouldn't be in a sealed envelope, resealed again. So apparently I'm having problems with my my microphone. We'll hook it up here instead. So what the fuck happened? It was bizarre. Now, I'm going to read you this little bit. Last night's Oscar bizarreness was not just bizarre, but bizarre in a way that is typical of an entirely bizarre time. The rhythm of yesterday's one, oh my God, no, they didn't event with La La Land replaced by Moonlight as Best Picture was weirdly like that of election night in the US. First, a more or less expected, if safe, result was on its way, although Hillary Clinton never actually got all the way to the stage to speak. The result did seem safely in hand at 7 p.m. according to the polling, and the expected and safe people were all ready to deliver their touching but obviously polished pieces. Then the sudden confusion and the near visible panic of people running around in the background of the stage with the same slightly horrified spirit that was felt on election night as the shocking results emerged, right? And Donald Trump won. Now, I didn't follow the election because I didn't give a fuck. Just call it what it was. I just didn't care. And I certainly wasn't going to sit glued to my TV if I had one, just to watch what was going on. But all the info was that Hillary Clinton was going to win, that she had bought and paid for that she was going to win. They'd already rigged the fucking election. She was calm and composed. She knew she was going to win. And something happened. Donald Trump won. Now, because I never followed the election, I never looked into that angle of it. When people, and I mentioned it on the last Transpicuous news that I did, that we talked about the Mandela effect, I brought up the fact in that one article talked about the election night and how people are trying to make fun of election night as being a Mandela effect. Never took it seriously because I never really did the research on that until I went and looked. Oh, isn't that interesting? And now we have this article in the New Yorker talking about the fact of, are we in like some glitched out computer simulation? And that's how come there was this Oscar night's glitch that was very, very much similar to election night. That's kind of interesting. When you have the mainstream media talking about stuff like this, you got to say, oh, really? And so both of these bizarre events put one in mind of a simple but arresting thesis that we are living in the matrix and something has gone wrong with the controllers. And the very fact that he uses the word controllers, which is one of my favorite words, was like, ooh, interesting. This idea was, I'm told, first put forth and most forcibly by the NYU philosopher David Chalmers. Now, this has been coming through for a long time. Basically, people or the machines or aliens who are supposed to be running our lives are having some kind of a breakdown. There's a glitch, and we're in it. And if that doesn't pretty much sum up everything that we've been experiencing for the last couple of years, I don't know what does. There's a glitch, and we're fucking in the middle of it. Yeah. Read the New Yorker article. There's a couple little pieces in there that make you go, interesting. And for the most part, that's me done for tonight. I will talk to you guys real soon. Probably the next couple of days or so. I want to talk about fake news. That'll be another day. Bye, guys.